Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 23, Text 38. Tatmin alupta mahima piyaya anurakto vidya adoribhir upachirna vapur jamane vabraja utkacha kumud dhanavan apityas Karabir, Avito, Vivodu, Patir, Nava, seemingly attached to his beloved consort, while served by the Gandharva girls, the sage did not lose his glory, which was mastery over his self. In the aerial mansion, Kardama Muni with his consort shone as charmingly as the moon in the midst of the stars in the sky, which causes rows of lilies to open in ponds at night. Purport. The mansion was in the sky, and therefore the comparison to the full moon and stars is very beautifully composed in this verse. Kardama Muni looked like the full moon, and the girls who surrounded his wife, Devahuti, seemed just like the stars. On a full moon night, the stars and the moon together form a beautiful constellation. Similarly, in that aerial mansion in the sky, Kardama Muni with his beautiful wife and the damsels surrounding them appeared like the moon and stars on a full moon night. Why don't you move that all the way in the back? Text 39. Kanashta Lokapa Vihara Kula Chalendra Dronishvananga Sakamaruta Saubhagasau Subhagasu Siddhar Nuto Judhuni Pata Shiva Svanasu Reme Chiram Ganadhaval Lalana Varhuti. In that aerial mansion, he traveled to the pleasure valleys of Mount Meru, which were rendered all the more beautiful by cool, gentle, fragrant breezes that stimulated passion. In these valleys, the treasurer of the gods, Kuvera, surrounded by beautiful women and praised by the Siddhas, generally enjoys pleasure. Kardama Muni also, surrounded by the beautiful damsels and his wife, went there and enjoyed for many, many years. Purport. Kuvera is one of the 8 demigods who are in charge of different directions of the universe. It is said that Indra is in charge of the eastern side of the universe, where the heavenly planet or paradise is situated. Similarly, Agni is in charge of the southeastern portion of the universe. Yama, the demigod who punishes sinners, is in charge of the southern portion. Niriti is in charge of the southwestern part of the universe. Varuna, the demigod in charge of the waters, is in charge of the western portion. Vayu, who controls the air and who has wings to travel in the air, is in charge of the southwestern part of the universe. And Kuvera, the treasurer of the demigod, is in charge of the northern part of the universe. All these demigods take pleasure in the valleys of Mount Meru, which is situated somewhere between the sun and the earth. In the aerial mansion, Kardama Muni traveled throughout the 8 directions, controlled by the different demigods described above. And as the demigods go to Mount Meru, he also went there to enjoy life. When one is surrounded by young, beautiful girls, sex stimulation naturally becomes prominent. Kardama Muni was sexually stimulated, and he enjoyed his wife for many, many years in that part of Mount Meru. But his sex indulgence was praised by many, many siddhas, beings who have attained perfection, because it was intended to produce good progeny for the good of universal affairs. Text 40. Vaishrambake surasane nandane pushpa bhadrake manase chaitraratyecha sareme ramaya ratoho. Satisfied by his wife, he enjoyed in that aerial mansion, not only on Mount Meru, but in different gardens known as Vaishrambaka, Surasana, Nandana, Pushpabhadraka, and Chaitraratya, and by the Manasa Sarovara lake. Text 41. Brajishnuna vimanena kamagena mahiyasha vaimanikan achasheta charalokan yatanila. He traveled in that way through the various planets, as the air passes uncontrolled in every direction. Coursing through the air in that great and splendid aerial mansion, which could fly at his will, he surpassed even the demigods. Purport. The planets occupied by the demigods are restricted to their own orbits, but Kardama Muni, by his yogic power, could travel all over the different directions of the universe without restriction. The living entities who are within the universe are called conditioned souls. That is, they are not free to move everywhere. We are inhabitants of this earthly globe. We cannot move freely to other planets. In the modern age, man is trying to go to other planets, but so far he has been unsuccessful. It is not possible to travel to any other planets because by the laws of nature, even the demigods cannot move from one planet to another. But Kardama Muni, by his yogic power, could surpass the strength of the demigods and travel in space in all directions. The comparison here is very suitable. The words yatha anila indicate that as the air is free to move everywhere without restriction, so Kardama Muni unrestrictedly traveled in all directions of the universe. Tasmin nalupta mahima priyahanurakto vijadharhibir upachirna vapurvamane vabraja utkacha kumud ganavana pichas Tarabir avrita ivodu patir nabastha. Though seemingly attached to his beloved consort, while served by the Gandharva girls, the sage did not lose his glory, which was mastery over his self. In the aerial mansion, Kardama Muni with his consort shone as charmingly as the moon in the midst of the stars in the sky, which causes rows of lilies to open in ponds at night. So, this section of Srimad Bhagavatam, of course, is attractive to the conditioned souls, since it deals with the topmost of all types of material pleasure that exist. There are no greater material pleasures than those which are experienced by Kardama Muni. Kardama Muni, he was experiencing pleasures along with Devahuti which were unsurpassed in the universe. And therefore the conditioned souls like to hear this very much. They become envious of him, and they think, oh, why can't I enjoy like that? Why can't I also have such great power and pleasure to enjoy anything and everything as I like? So, we find that although we may be envious of his position, that there's a meaning behind all of this. Now that meaning is as follows. That Kardama Muni, he had all the pleasures of this world. He had everything conceivable that anybody could want. And yet, at the time when he was understanding that it was enough, he had performed his responsibility and duty, he left it. Immediately. That is something very great. In the beginning, one may think, oh, this person is very attached. But if one examines the actual activity, he will see that immediately this Kardama Muni just picked up and left. That is one of the most amazing things. First, the Bhagavatam describes this unlimited enjoyment, and then it describes how he just walked away from it. That is the difference between us and Kardama Muni. You see, we might be thinking, look at this Kardama Muni, enjoying with his wife like anything. Just like anything. So, why don't we do the same thing? But then the example is there that Kardama Muni just walked away from it all too. And not when he had a fight with his wife either. Not when there was a scandal in the family. But right in the middle of all of this, he just walked away. When it was finished, time to go. That is the difference between a great soul and a common man. A common person, he will remain attached to whatever he's got for unlimited amounts of time. And a great person will just get up and walk away from it all. Of course, we don't know such great persons right now in this world. Therefore, it's better to avoid getting into such entanglements. Of course, Kardama Muni was a resident of the higher regions to begin with. And secondly, he was a Prajapati. Thirdly, he was to be the father of the Supreme Lord when the Supreme Lord appeared on the planet as Kapila Dev. Devahuti Putra Kapila. So we find all these things taken into consideration. Kardama Muni was special in all respects. So, being special in all respects, he also manifested special power. If you can't manifest any power, if you can't do anything special, then maybe you had better stop thinking you're special. Sometimes we all like to think of ourselves as special. Rather, maybe we always like to think of ourselves as special. Everybody wants to think of himself as special. Everybody, all of us, we're all in the same boat. Fame, profit, and distinction. We're in this world because we want to also be distinct. I am very special. There's nobody as special as me. I am distinct in a very special way. And nobody can understand it even. Practically mystical, my distinct speciality. Everybody has these funny ideas in their head. Yeah? And everybody wants to be glorified with the crowd screaming their name, roaring, chanting their name. And everybody wants to get as much money out of it or profit out of it as possible. So, but let's make a test. Are we doing anything special? No. Eating, sleeping, mating, defending. First of all, nothing special about that. Can we make palaces in the sky? No. Can we make a little rock in the sky? No. Can we make anything on the earth? No. What special thing we can do? Very little. Maybe somebody can do just this much. But as we say, in the forest of no trees, the castor tree is very big. Castor plant is so big. So, in a forest where there's no tree, that tree looks really huge. So here we are in the barren Kali Yuga, in the barren earth planet. No trees, nothing, just blank. And somewhere a little bush popped up. And all the ant-like people who are walking around think, look at that. Huge tree. Never saw anything so big. But compared to some resident of the heavenly planets, this is just a nothing of a nothing. So we are very much proud of all these things, but this is becoming proud of borrowed plumes. If you borrow the feathers, if the chicken borrows the feathers from the peacock, that doesn't make the chicken more glorified. In fact, it makes him a thief. So now, we find that Kardama Muni, he had actual power. He was not like us. He had actual power. So much so that he could make in the sky a mansion. An aerial mansion. A whole, like, palace with thousands of Gandharva girls serving his wife, Devahuti. First of all, Devahuti was very much dirty and like dull in the brilliance because of being covered by so much austerity. She was not looking very beautiful. She was the daughter of a king. Very, very beautiful. Daughter of Swayambhuva Manu. Extremely beautiful. Extraordinarily beautiful. But when she was following Kardama Muni, she was dressed in rags. After all, when you are living in the forest by a river, you can't keep things very clean. You can wash your clothes every day in the water, but that doesn't make them shiny, white, and brilliant. You need soap and all kinds of things. There was no such thing. So even though it was clean, it didn't look very clean. So she was not in a very decorated condition, not at all. Just plain hair, no taking care of it in any way, and no decorations, nothing. But Kardama Muni, when he noticed that his wife was lamenting a little bit, because after all, home, wife means family, especially if you're a Prajapati. So, that was a joke. Where's my sign? So, Kardama Muni, knowing that now my wife, she feels like this, because he knew everything. He didn't have to have a big discussion late into the night. He knew exactly what his wife was thinking. So he immediately sent her under the water. And there, under the water, she was surrounded by thousands of Gandharva girls, who took care of her very nicely. Made her body very beautiful, gave her golden ornaments, gave her all kinds of things. She was very, very gorgeous and beautiful in every respect. And then as soon as she thought of her husband, because she was amazed at all this mystic power, then immediately she was brought before her husband with all these girls. And she was just bewildered, astounded at her husband's power. Yes, that is the way you can please your wife. Men, you who are trying to satisfy your wives, keep them happy, this is the way to do it. You develop great mystic power, then you send your wife into the bottom of the lake there. Of course, you can also leave her there and go on. But that wouldn't look very good. So, then you send thousands of Gandharva girls there who take care of her, then she comes out very beautiful. It'll be a big change. And then, you can make an aerial mansion in the sky. Very nice, some mystic power can float up there so you have no worries. Nobody can go up there and bother you. And then, you can enjoy sex life very nicely, without any disturbances. And in the end, the Supreme Lord will appear as your son, and you'll be very satisfied. Then you can renounce everything and go into the forest again and just live in rags. Whew. It sounds heavy. The last part was just the heaviest of all. Everybody was thinking, great, yeah, up until go in the forest and live in rags again. Oh no. What was the use then, we think? What is the use of going in the forest if I have to come out and live in rags? Oh, how horrible. But this is the problem when we are in the conditioned life. We're very attached. We become attached to everything. It's like Prabhupada used to say that a Sudra becomes attached to his 2-paisa coin. Anything little, tiny, which he has as opulence, he's attached to and never wants to give it up. Doesn't want to give it to anybody. Doesn't want anybody to take it away. Wants to keep it all. So this is the problem. It's a problem. It's a big problem. That we in the material world, no matter what dress we're wearing, if it's white or it's saffron or any other color in between. Nowadays there are many different forms of ashrams that weren't there formerly. So, whatever situation one is in, then he becomes attached to things. This is the problem. Therefore, one has to always be acting in such a way that he's engaging everything fully in Krishna's service. And it's not easy, because we tend to take and make arrangements where we ourselves can be either protected or glorified, or we can enjoy something. Therefore it's very, very difficult to have something in this world and not be attached. Of course, Prabhupada mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam that the worst attachment of all is the attachment to the family life. Sometimes people say that a sannyasi may be attached to a temple or some few possessions possessed by a sannyasi. But Prabhupada went on to say that that is far less serious than the attachment to family life. We have seen it so that even if one has taken up the renounced order, the attachment to family life is so strong that they fall back again. Therefore, it seems very dangerous to take sannyas in this Kali Yuga. Therefore, everyone should understand they should go through the aspects of the Varnashram. Kardama Muni's life was perfect Varnashram example. Perfect Varnashram example. Of course, in the, shall we say, superlative, far beyond our capacity to imitate, but the example given is perfect. First of all, he was a brahmachari, engaged in severe austerities. By his lake, very nicely meditating, very nicely doing austerities. He looked like a gem in the raw state. If you take a diamond out of the earth, it's covered in such a way it just looks like a lump of stone. None of us here would even recognize a diamond if we saw it. If somebody bumped into it digging with a shovel, he would throw it away. You wouldn't know what it looked like. That's what Kardama Muni was like. But you cannot keep the brilliance from those who know what it is. They know what's there underneath. When you shine the surface a little bit, it becomes very brilliant, and you've got the real thing of great value. So, Kardama Muni was a perfect brahmachari in that way, which meant a lot of power. Real brahmachari has a lot of power. But that must be channeled now when one enters into the household ashram. Then in that ashram, he has to learn to live with the world. In the sannyas ashram, you learn to live without the world. But that first you have to learn to live with the world. As a brahmachari, first you learn how to live. As a householder, you learn how to live with the world. You have to live with all of the problems of society. So many social problems. We could go through a whole sociological analysis of problems. In fact, we wanted to do that here in Almviks. Spend one morning discussing, not during the class, after the class, with some board and some pens, the sociology of problems of living in a bigger community. We can do that. Where we discuss in total how the society has problem simply because of size. As soon as there are bigger sizes, then there are many different interests, many different ideas. So you have to have a forum by which these things may be manifested. Just like now we have our computer is running its communications program. So we have one conference there called Free Forum, which anybody who can get his hands on the computer should be able to enter. Just like last night we put a whole thing on there about the hallway situation out here. So we want to make a free forum that others can make their ideas. And the more that people have ideas, then the more better ideas come out. In other words, a discussion of good ideas. Therefore, there needs to be some community of brahmanas who have good ideas. We were discussing, of course, some of you have been listening, I think, on the telephone. Class has been here on the telephone. So, we were talking about the relationships between brahmanas and kshatriyas. Problem is, no Kshatriya wants to follow a Brahmana who doesn't have a good idea. The Brahmana doesn't have a good idea, and he doesn't know what he's doing, then who wants to follow him? If what the Brahmana teaches the Kshatriya doesn't work, the Kshatriya says, I've got a problem. And then the Brahmana says, oh, why don't you try this? And then it falls flat on the face. Then the Kshatriya will be thinking twice before he asks that Brahmana for advice. But then again, how will you get a Brahmana? How will you get a Kshatriya unless you've got a proper Brahmana? Because the Brahmanas train up the Kshatriyas. The Kshatriyas learn from Brahmanas. Vaishyas learn from Vaishyas, Sudras learn from Sudras. But Kshatriyas learn from Brahmanas. Expert, like Dronacharya, expert teachers. So if there's no expert Brahmana, who's going to train up the Kshatriya? So the whole problem in the human society is there's no Brahmanas. And there we can understand our sociological problem. You cannot make, just like we have made this Almviks committee. It's supposed to be made of Brahmanas. Or also Kshatriyas who are attached to the Brahminical nature. But where are such persons? Of course we are trying to develop. So we have made a committee of potential qualified persons. There's a potential there. Possibility for qualification. And that possibility has to be fanned, developed more. So that such persons can learn the art of learning and understanding. For instance, if you have those who are actually Brahmanas, it is their duty to learn things about things. It was their duty to learn things about things. And then they can teach things. Just like we have so many who are here doing puja work. And that is Brahminical activity. If you are doing puja and if you stick to it, you are Brahmana. There's no doubt about it. Because you cannot do it if you're in the mode of passion. If you're not in the mode of goodness, there's no way you can stick to being a pujari. It's impossible. Now, we don't want just simply puja Brahmanas. They should do the puja. But they should also learn things and teach them to others. They should learn all kinds of arts, all kinds of things which are very important and valuable, and teach it to others. Where there are teachers, there are learners. And where there are learners, there's efficiency. And things go on nicely. It's like we have to have some Brahmanas who become expert in the art of social affairs. Because this whole world is filled with social affairs. And when you go through the Grihastha ashram, you're stuck in social affairs. Just like here. Kardama Muni. The perfect brahmachari Brahmana, great mystic yogi, still stuck in social affairs, but not entangled. He had to deal with it, but not entangled by it. You have to deal with it. You have to deal with the problems. There are men, there are women. There are married men, married women. They have problems. There are children. They have problems. There's the outside world. They have problems with us. And we have problems with them. These are sociological problems. And there need to be a class of Brahmanas who know how to solve such problems. But Brahmanas cannot complain if the Kshatriyas don't want to follow them, if their advice doesn't work. If their advice doesn't work, they'd better go back to the drawing board and learn some more. And then they can say, well, I'm not exactly sure about this, but I found out that this might work. Why don't you try it? Or you can give different alternatives and discuss it together. In other words, a committee of Brahmanas is meant to give knowledge, not to simply sit around and pass judgment. Sometimes we think a committee is meant to pass judgment. That simply it criticizes, let's say, whoever's managing. So we have a committee who's the judge of the manager. No, not at all. Completely wrong idea. Committee is Brahmana, who's meant to give knowledge to the manager by investigation. And then just giving knowledge. Giving projects to committee members to learn and develop perfect arts, and teach it. This is real Brahminical activity. Then the Kshatriya will be very eager to follow it because it'll be first class and he'll have the best place. And that he likes. Kshatriya wants to have the best place, the most organized, the most together, the most perfect. That's the Kshatriya nature. And the Brahminical nature is to give it perfect knowledge so that it can happen, because when everybody's satisfied, when the Kshatriya's got a good thing going, and all the people see it's organized and moving and things are happening, they like it. That's society. Although we might like to say, oh, we're just devotees, we're transcendental to all this, we don't follow any of these things. We've heard so much garbage like this in our society. Now we can come right out and say it plainly, because everybody who said it has fallen down. Everybody. And those who were trying to make the Varnashram principle happen, they're still standing up. This means something, doesn't it? What it means is that you cannot ignore the world. You cannot ignore reality. We are conditioned. We are in Maya. Let's admit it. And stop thinking we are big transcendentalists floating around the Vaikuntha regions and just reaching into the material world now and then to give somebody a book and then taking the Lakshmi back up to Vaikuntha. Let's face it. We're in Maya here. That's why we're here. We're conditioned souls. We are nothing but small servants of Krishna. Let's face it. We're not transcendental. And therefore we require absolutely to make this kind of organization, for if we don't, we fall down. The whole community will fall down. That community which does not try to organize like this cannot maintain. It'll be simply involved with fighting, bickering, quarreling, troubles, disturbances, anger, anxiety, nervousness, psychosis, paranoia, neurosis, schizophrenia. You name it, we're going to get it, or got it. Why? Because you've got to be peaceful in order to survive in Krishna consciousness. If you want to survive in Krishna consciousness, you have to be peaceful and somewhat satisfied with yourself. Otherwise, you can't go on. You have to be a little bit properly. Self-situated, then you can go on with your Krishna consciousness very nicely. That's what social organization's all about. That's what brahmanas are all about. To make sure that people are self-situated in the society. They can see the qualities of man. They can train the qualities to make them perfect in their own qualities. That's what's so nice about having a big community. You can have people engage in activities according to their qualities. And that's not bad. That's very good. And you can train those qualities to be very, very good. And then the Kshatriya makes sure you stick to your duty. He doesn't have to worry about engaging you in particular ways, because you already have your duty by your quality. And you may specialize and do it perfectly. But you must do it. That's what the Kshatriya is there for. You must do it. Not that you become one of these sit-down somewhere brahmanas who do nothing. Throw water over his shoulder now and then and eat for Krishna. Says the Brahmana, when he eats, Krishna is eating. The Vishnu is eating through the Brahmanas. So therefore the Brahmana should sit somewhere and do nothing. And just eat. No! Must work! Brahmanas must work hard. That's why we are developing our library here. I don't know if any of you know it, but we are developing quite a little library. Continuously we are purchasing books wherever we go, collecting books. And right now they're all sitting in Sri Ram's room, more and more. He has a big room because there's going to be a lot of books in there. Soon he has to move out. We've already discussed this. And there'll be a nice library full of books. What for? Not for everybody to come in and browse, but for brahmanas to learn perfectly well the arts of doing things. I'm the purchaser for the library. I like this art very much. We like books very much. We like to make them, we like to read them, we like to use them. Because when you have good knowledge, and you learn how to extract the good knowledge, and use it in practical affairs, your practical affairs are very first class. Therefore, we've also made this bulletin board here on the computer. We're very much interested to have this bulletin board or conference system, so that you can just dial a conference. We want to have a Brahminical conference going on, a Kshatriya conference going on, where the Kshatriyas can discuss their problems together. You can have, let's say, all the managers in the zone. They have one conference area, and they're continuously putting messages on this board. How they dealt with their various problems and how they solved them. You make a problem and say, can anybody help me? And then the answer comes, why don't you try like this? The computer people do it all the time, you see. Somebody says, I have a bug in my program. I wrote this line and it just bombs out every time. It doesn't work. And then another programmer, he says, hey, I had the same problem last week and I just did this and it worked great. And they write back, fantastic, thanks a lot. These are like real quotes. This is the way it works. So similarly, the manager can write, I've got this here devotee. He just refuses to do anything. His qualities are like this, I suppose I can see. I've asked a couple of Brahmanas, they don't know nothing either. So, what do you all think? And somebody says, I had a guy just like that last year, and I did like this. Oh, really? Let's try it, okay? It worked! Fantastic! Then the Brahmanas can be back and forth. I've been trying to teach this Kshatriya something, he doesn't listen to me at all. Another Brahmana says, it's probably because you don't know anything, fool. What are you trying to teach him? Well, about this and that. Well, what do you know about this and that? Well, why don't you learn something? Okay. Thanks a lot. You see, because we're so impersonal, we don't like to talk to each other, that we can do it through the computer. In this way, everybody can, the pujaris can have their thing all over the whole of Europe. This is for the whole of Europe. Pujaris can have their thing. They can write on the bulletin board their thing about being pujaris. I just learned a great mantra. And this technique for doing this puja is fantastic. And if you do this sacrifice, the fire burns all the time in the middle of the altar. Everybody's really impressed. Yeah? We have it. Many persons are working in this area. I've seen it. I've seen it's already developing, just nobody's aware of it. In Europe, when I travel here and there, I see, here's a pujari, really into Brahminical activities. He knows all the mantras, the tantras, the yantras, everything. And he's got really powerful things going. He's eager to meet another. And then I find another one. He says, you know anybody who's really into this pujari business and this and that, and I want to learn, and you have anybody over there? In this way, we just open all kinds of lines of communication where such persons can come together. Now, others have tried this in the past, but not along varnashram lines. It should be done according to Brahminical quality. And in the Brahminical department, there be separate departments too, because not all the Brahmanas are interested, let's say, in sociological problems. Not all the Brahmanas are interested in the problems of management. Not all the Brahmanas are interested in puja. There are different departments. So we want to establish the Brahminical department, the Kshatriya department, like this. And then, within that, we can have communication. This all sounds very good, but it has to start somewhere. So therefore we've been trying to start it here. Except we've never been so straightforward in saying it. Yeah. Now we have to do it exactly like that. Start the Brahmana section, and let some be designated as Brahmanas, and let them work as Brahmanas. The Kshatriya section, let some be designated as Kshatriyas, and let everybody listen to them. And some be the Vaishyas, and let them work on the farm. Make the farm perfect and first class. Take care of the cows very nicely. They have the responsibility. Like we're always worrying about managing, how to manage everything. Why? Because we don't let the Vaishyas be Vaishyas and take charge of the farming and the cow protection. If they're doing it perfectly, then what do we have to worry about? The king doesn't worry about whether the cows are fed, does he? He doesn't have to worry, because the Vaishya's worrying about it, because that's his life. The king doesn't have to worry if the shoes are made or not. The shoemaker makes the shoes. That's his life. If he doesn't make the shoes, he doesn't live. When society's made like that, everything works fine. But when it's a big centralized communism, everything goes to hell. Why? Because everyone thinks the other person's doing it, or the state is doing it. The state doesn't do nothing, except collect taxes and spend it on war. Therefore, we require that everybody's departmentalized. And then the leader makes sure they're all doing their work. That's all. There's no problem. Now, this all sounds great, doesn't it? How to do it practically. Therefore, lines of communication. Open them up. Let's start here. Everybody may be involved. Whatever you are doing, you may be involved. We're also going to try to figure out a way by which everybody may be part of this bulletin board system, even if you don't know anything. We're setting up little terminals here and there so you can all go into the bulletin board. We also want to have, for travelers, they have these little computers nowadays, so big, which have ports on the back where you can hook them up to a little modem and hook up to a telephone somewhere. And then you can also be there, even on your Sankirtan. You can connect. Everybody can be connected. We were already talking about getting another computer because this one's already too small and too slow. Because our movement's based on knowledge, and we're in a development stage. And we're not even aware it's based on knowledge. We think that it's based on money, or it's based on opulence, or something like that. It's based on knowledge. And knowledge of how to organize and how to do things according to the Varnashram principles is real knowledge which makes it go on. And if we see that people care about things, and they have some desire to get into things, and they want to make it nice, and they want to make the knowledge expand, then they'll be real eager to do it. I have seen that there's no more captive audience than an audience of devotees when you use a blackboard and you explain things as they are. Twice so far we have done. Once we had in Germany a Varnashram seminar, where for 5 hours all we did was explain the principles of Varnashram. And for 5 hours everybody listened without stopping. They didn't even want to have a break. We did the same thing, explaining with the BBT. Everybody was completely absorbed in it. Because devotees like knowledge. We somehow always forget about it. We always push it away. But devotees are devotees because they like knowledge. Every devotee likes knowledge. Every devotee likes these things. No matter, even if you think you're a Sudra or you are one by nature, you still like knowledge because you're a devotee. That's what it means to be superior to a Brahmana, a Vaishnava. It means you just like knowledge. You may understand your body has a certain nature, or you have a certain skill or ability, which is very good for serving Krishna. So you like to use it that way, but above all, you like knowledge. And therefore tomorrow, we can schedule it, the seminar. It can start around 10 o'clock. And it can go on for some time. And we're just going to describe sociology. The sociology of life as a devotee. Now, we're not going to say that this is everything, and there's nothing more than that. We're going to say these are just some principles which you can start thinking about. And once you start thinking about them, then you'll understand more about what the actual problems are. Because everybody sees problems, isn't it? There's nobody who doesn't see a problem. I mean, maybe a fool somewhere doesn't see a problem. But everybody sees a problem. But the question is how to solve the problem. And solving the problem can be done only through Varnashram structure. It's not that I have to say, I'm convinced of it, you should believe me. We shouldn't even have to ask the question. Krishna said it, that's all, bas, finished. Prabhupada mentions it thousands of places in his books. That we must organize. Society must be. He always used to use the term divided. And people, they always got insulted because they didn't understand what he meant by divided. He didn't mean like when the Russians partitioned off parts of Poland. They just chopped the line, then they shipped everybody on one side to the other side, and everybody on the other side to the other side. Bas, finished. That's not what we mean. We mean according to what you are anyway. What could be more proper? But we get like afraid. Oh no, what if somebody sees I'm a Brahmin? Do something really nice. Everybody says, oh, that's fantastic. And they go, don't worry, everything works out. That which you want, that which you think will satisfy you, you'll get when you act according to your nature. And if you act according to some other nature, it will not satisfy you. If you want to be the big controller, then be a big controller, Shachya. But if you want to succeed, you better have some good brahmanas to give you some good advice. Now, where are those brahmanas? I can see a couple who could be quite good. I can see others who should be quite good. And I can see a few more who we should get them to think that they could be. But right now, we don't have anybody who's such a qualified person that he can give an advice and boom, it all works perfectly. So we have to train. And how do you train? You train by, first of all, designating learners who, when they graduate from the school of learning, can teach. And in this way, it goes on very nice. But first we have to have good learners and good followers. Everybody has to want to do this. Therefore, I want to make this seminar with all the devotees, so that we can all together decide we want to do this. When you want to do something, you do it. When you don't want to do something, you never do it. When you want to surrender, you surrender. When you don't want to, you don't surrender. So, we should want to. Most problems come in society when you have persons who just don't want to do it, don't want to surrender. And they just make trouble for everybody else. And the manager fries out trying to get such persons to work, and then his being fried out affects everybody else too. So this cannot be. Everybody must want to, voluntary. And if you don't want to, you should get yourself a wife and live outside. Nearby, but outside. In your own house, where you can control it as you like. And when you want to, you can come and do some service out of your mercy. But if one doesn't want to serve, by his nature, that's okay. We don't want to put square pegs in round holes. But when you want to serve, you should just do it according to your nature, but you should do it. Not that we need 10 temple commanders running around to find you. Isn't it that way? Our men are expert at finding holes somewhere to go to sleep. Nobody can find him. Where did he go? He's got his place. So, but you should work according to your nature. That's all right. Yeah. So what do you think about all this? One tries to talk about the philosophy lately, but it's getting very hard. Because you cannot talk about philosophy in chaos. If the whole world is chaos, and you're sitting somewhere just talking about philosophy as if it was, la-di-da-da-da-da-da-da. But everything's in chaos. It's not possible to work. It's not possible to teach anything. It's not possible for anyone to learn anything. You have to, first of all, make peace. And then happiness will develop. And in that state, knowledge will develop. Then everybody can learn very nicely. So therefore we want to make the possibility for peace. By making the organization so that everything will be peaceful, and then we can actually learn the philosophy. Just like we have made this Brahmana test. We've already made the test. We had a wonderful opportunity to practice our Spanish by writing it in Spanish. And then we had to give the test, and we realized that nobody understood anything about anything. We gave the test to all of our brahmanas in Buenos Aires, and actually the whole of Argentina and Uruguay. And one or two wrote more. There were 14 different questions in the first part. There are 6 parts. So we gave them the first part one day. They took about 3 hours. Some of them wrote about 3 pages. some about 4 pages. A couple wrote about 10 pages, 2 of them. So then we decided that we've got a big problem here. That our devotees don't know much. And if we gave a test here, I'm sure we'd get the same result. Now, how do you do it? How do we make the classes so everybody learns our philosophy better? But you can't do it in a chaos. You can only do it in something organized, structured, where everything fits and works. So therefore, in order to accomplish anything proper, we have to make organization. And organization means Brahminical organization. Then we'll properly organize the ashramas also. Our ashramas in our movement are in chaos. We have all kinds of ashramas. We have first brahmachari, then grihastha, then sannyas, then grihastha, then brahmachari, then vanaprastha, then grihastha. We have a whole series of ashramas. We don't just stop with with 4. We keep going. This one to that one, boom, bam, back and forth. So, this is causing so much havoc in our movement. So therefore we have to make it so that the ashramas can be properly set up. But Prabhupada said, first start the varnas, the ashramas will follow automatically. But nobody accepted that. They thought, we'll just go on with these ashramas and forget about varnas. But what's happening is the ashramas in chaos because nobody cared about the varnas. So let's get the varnas set. And if you're actually a brahmana, then there's a possibility of taking sannyas. But if you're a kshatriya, what are you taking sannyas for? Kshatriya has to be married. There's no question of not being married. How can you do this activity? It's the mode of passion. So, when you know what your varna is, then your ashrama falls directly in line. It's non-stop, directly. One of the questions I gave in the Buenos Aires test was, describe the varnashram system in brief. Describe the qualities of the different varnas. Describe the ashramas which are attached to the different varnas. And what do you think is your varna? And therefore, what do you think is your ashrama? That question really stopped everybody dead. Because once you accept what your varna is, immediately your ashrama is there. And that really shocks everybody. You know? Well, I'm a Vaishya. Boom. Household. Well, I'm a Kshatriya. Householder. Well, I'm a Brahmana. Take your choice. You see, it's scientific. That's the way to make happiness. Get yourself situated properly and be happy. That's all we care about, that you should be happy. We want you to be satisfied. You get situated. You're working hard. We don't have to worry about you. You're doing your thing nicely. You're serving Krishna. You're going back to Godhead. Society's moving on. We're preaching more and more. And you're satisfied. Then everything works. But so long as we've got all this weird mixture of everything, it cannot work. So, we also want to give the same test. In fact, we think this test is really far out because along with the test comes the answers. We've written all the answers in some many pages, huge amount of pages of answers. For the first part, it was something like 40 pages, the answers. So, now, we're going to give the answers and the questions simultaneously. You study them, then you come for the test. But you only get the questions this time. Then you write answers. Because I feel that if you can even just memorize and repeat, that's good enough. See, we're not trying to trick you with different questions. You can write an essay and you can just repeat everything you've heard because that's good enough for preaching. Now the next stage will be, when you come to the platform of having knowledge, how to use it. That's something else. You got to learn how to use it too, so that if somebody asks you a question a little bit differently, you don't get bewildered. But first you have to learn it. Then you can learn to use it. So this is an amazing test. You get the question and the answers. And then you just have to reproduce the answers. But these things require, we've talked about this before, but we always somehow felt it wasn't exactly the right time. Not everybody saw the necessity. But I think the events of the last few months have been so chaotic that everybody can see, finally, I think so, isn't it? That we really need this. And if we don't do it, we're finished. So, therefore, because there's now some consensus amongst the devotees, now let's get going in the real business, which we've been talking about for many years, but now let's do it, finally. Yeah. And let's actually understand our situation better. Are there any questions? Yes. That we have to talk in our seminar. Those who have brain and ability to learn. Like I mentioned in the class the other day, we had our national council in Switzerland. And I made it so, law. If you have to be Brahmana to be on that council, or you have to be Kshatriya who is attached to the Brahminical qualities. So if you cannot come to the programs, you cannot be on that council. The first thing is you have to come to all the programs. Giving classes, listening to classes, doing like that. Then, if you don't do, you got to resign. So everybody resigned. There was only 2 left. Started off at 10, now it's down to 2. It's very interesting. Everybody thinks they're great this and great that. Okay, prove it. You're a great Brahmana, you prove it. I want to see Brahminical qualities, Brahminical action. If you don't have them, then get out of being a Brahmana. Try something else, sir. Don't take up the position just because you think you're a big man and then ruin everything for others. You have to prove you're a Brahmana by acting like a Brahmana. And then, when you actually have the Brahminical quality, learn something perfectly and teach it to others. Then everybody will be eager to listen because you'll have respect of people because you have the quality. If you think you could be a Brahmana, but you got some problems, then let's work on it. You can be a humble attempter. And then we'll work on you and help you to get it together. So the standards are there. You've got to come to them. If you think you're a big Kshatriya, but when the fighting comes, you just run away, forget it. The real Kshatriya is the one who, when the war comes, he's out there running and just drooling with lust. When the battle comes, he's the first one. You can understand who's the real organizer. When things get really chaotic, he's immediately getting things together. Then you know. There's tests, and everybody can understand. And a real Vaishya is he who takes care of the cows and takes care of the farm and can't tolerate it unless it's done nicely. Yes. Devotee just serves Krishna. So when you understand the Varnashram structure, you'll understand that if you just make things nice in the Varnashram, that's the best service for everybody. Because even the demons were somewhat pacified because Bali Maharaj was a devotee and he was doing it in the Varnashram structure. It's so perfect that even demons can be controlled. You understand? So Bhishma, he had to do by social obligations. He had to do. After all, it was his family. What was he going to do? Also go into exile? And how was he going to do his duty? We have to use common sense, too. Yes? Oh, wait, back there. Well, obviously one is not a Brahmana if one's confused. And if one can't manage anything, then one shouldn't understand he's a Kshatriya. And if one couldn't make any money or take care of the cows or take care of the land, he's certainly not a Vaishya. So what's left? One can deduce like this what he is. It's tough because we have these big egos that just hates to say, I'm a Sudra. Just hates it. Then no happiness. You can go on being a big man, but you'll never be happy. You like being a big man, miserable? Go ahead. What can we say? At one point you'll learn and then give it up. Yes. Yes, maybe mixed, but you have to stick to one and perfect it. The most predominant. The most predominant. Wait, I have to give the chance to the persons who haven't asked. Yes. The worst attachment, not the worst thing. The worst attachment. Not better, he must be. Kshatriya also must be. Sudra must be. Brahmana may or may not be. But don't be attached. That's what Kardama Muni example is all about. This whole thing started because of the attachments. Yeah. But you can't have this very systematic detachment unless you've got proper varnas, so that got me involved in all this. Yes? I didn't say scared. They started to become fearful. First of all, let's get one thing straight. Dronacharya was not the spiritual master of Arjuna. He was the teacher in martial arts. In that sense, the student should become more powerful than the teacher, if the teacher does it right. Because the Brahmana is not supposed to be all that powerful. Dronacharya was special, a very special Brahmana, and he was very much more powerful than everybody except Arjuna. Dronacharya could stop when Arjuna made the vow to kill Jayadratha the next day by the sunset. Dronacharya was placed at the head to stop anybody from going through the needle formation, the 27 kilometers or whatever it was, all the way down to the end, to be able to kill Jayadratha. So what happened was that Arjuna, he went right by Dronacharya. Nobody else could do it, but he just went right by. Because nobody could stop Arjuna, not Dronacharya or anyone. And Dronacharya was very appreciative of this, because the master is very appreciative when the student becomes better. But if the spiritual master is factual spiritual master, disciple generally does not become superior. But if he does, spiritual master is very satisfied. And he says, yes, you will take me back home, back to Godhead. But he doesn't have to become fearful, he becomes very happy. He's not envious of his disciples, but his disciples become very powerful. He thinks very good, he takes shelter of them. Take me back to Godhead. I don't think we have that problem. Not yet. And we won't consider it a problem. Yes. music, we make music for Krishna. Krishna music. Being musical is one of the qualities of a devotee. Being very poetic and musical, these are qualities of devotees in general. It's not a sudra, no. It's a sudra when you play and then you want the crowds to scream and roar and pay you. That's sudra. But when you're singing for Krishna or make music for Krishna, that's not sudra at all. That's one of the qualities of the devotee. You wheel and deal. You're a money maker. Yeah? Well then, maybe you should decide what you are. But Sankirtan is a really nice activity when you're distributing books, because somehow you can dovetail all these other things and still maintain the topmost Brahminical type platform of just giving people transcendental knowledge. It's really a way you can dovetail the propensity to make money, and it's perfect. Some they like to make money, but they like to give knowledge while they're doing it. Some they have no attachment to making money, but they like to give knowledge. That's very purely Brahminical. Those who are mixed, they may like to give knowledge, but they like to make money too. Then there's some mixture there, but that's okay, because as long as you stay on Sankirtan and distribute books, it's perfect. You have nothing to worry about. We have a place for you. Be satisfied. But if you're not on Sankirtan and you have such a mixture, better you make money. Because as soon as the Brahmanas become interested simply in making money, the whole society falls apart. Or, try and be a Brahmana and give it up. But if you start giving advice to the leaders to simply be interested in making money, well, you're also honest, so that's a Brahminical quality. You may say, I'm too insincere about self-realization, but that's a Brahminical quality, to be able to say, I'm too insincere about self-realization. But anyway, these things have to be worked out. You can't, I'm not going to be, a psychoanalyst. When we go through all the various nuances that are in your mind of this or that or the other thing. So one day you think like this, one day you think like that. We're talking about the steady qualities. If you've been doing Sankirtan for the last 10 years, how can you not be a Brahmana? Nobody but a Brahmana can do Sankirtan for 10 years. Isn't it? Everybody else, they give up and do something else. And one who likes doing it and just satisfied giving transcendental knowledge, you've got a Brahmana there. And a high-class one, too. Symptoms. Tell lakshanat, you see by the symptoms. Not properly engaged. They are engaged. They're doing their Brahminical work. They also have things within the society they have to do. Brahmanas, it's not like they all just go off on research grants and just forget about everything else. They have to work in such a way that the society is benefited. And that's what the Kshatriyas do. The kings would engage Brahmanas in particular tasks. That's a fact. Vashishta Muni was already Brahmana, right? It's not his nature to be independent of Brahmanas. A real Kshatriya is not at all is his nature to be independent. He's totally dependent. His nature is to succeed and make it perfect. But he also knows that he doesn't understand how to do it all. Because when he's trying, then everybody gets dissatisfied somehow or another. So he requires the Brahminical knowledge to learn how to do it right. The Kshatriya knows, if I want to succeed, he goes to the Brahmin and he says, look, I've got this problem. Please tell me how to get out of it. Then he doesn't worry all day. It's not his nature to just take over the Brahmin position. But it's the Kali Yuga. Right now, our fools and rascals in this age, we all, us, if we get a position, we want to get the most, the best, the top. And therefore we may act like that. But that means we're not even proper Kshatriya. That means we're just Shudras. And that's what the Bhagavatam says. Everybody's Sudra. And all the dress of the Kshatriya is all Sudras. Take over the rule of the society. It's solved by chanting Hare Krishna and getting purified. It's solved by chanting Hare Krishna, getting purified, understanding how to act and acting that way. That's why we're discussing it. And you see, the more you see the necessity, the more you see how everything's just collapsing. Without some organization like this, the more you'll be inclined to take it, the more seriously you'll take it in your own head, and then you'll start to move in the right direction automatically. You'll understand, I gotta be somewhere, so where do I want to be? And you'll start going there. In Heidelberg, I had made this list of what are the qualities of the different varnas. And I wanted them to put it on the wall so that all the devotees can start thinking about what they are. And there was some argument. Others didn't want to do that. But we ultimately won. So they put it on the wall. There was nobody bewildered. We should do that here too, in the hallway. The qualities that are demanded of each of the... And then you fit yourself automatically, because then everybody... It may take them a year even. But as soon as they have to start thinking about it, and they understand, they move in the direction automatically, because they know they have to be somewhere. So they go there. And then when they're there, they're happy. We don't want to push everybody, now you must be like this. Now we make a list and we say, Priyavrata, he's this. And then Priyavrata goes, oh no! But we say, this is what it is. If you're this, if you're like this, if you're like this, if you're like this, then you're one of these. So now you fit yourself, but you must follow all the qualities. So pick whichever one you like. If you like the one which includes no programs, then you can just go straight to that Sudra category and be happy. But then you must do what you're told. Maybe I still have that chart on computer. I can print it out here. We'll put it on the wall here. Or we can typeset it in big letters. And then everybody can just start. You all know well enough, but not really the specific practical affair, but everybody knows well enough. So just start thinking. Start thinking. You'll find that you're pretty near properly engaged right now. Because we've been subtly putting everybody in these places. Because we've been thinking about this for years. So we're just trickily and sneakily, without making you disturbed in any way, just putting you in the right place, little by little. And if you don't like it, we let you do something else and suffer for a while. And then when you come and you say, oh, I'm suffering, then we say, well, why don't you try it like that? And then you go, that sounds good. And then you go over there. And then gradually we make, like, sometimes you have to go through 3 or 4 different things until you're in the right one. And then when you're in the right one, and we say, now just stay there. If you think about it, you may have noticed that we've pushed various persons subtly into different positions. Now that's tough because it's real risky. As soon as you find out we're doing that, then you rebel. And as soon as you rebel, it's all finished. becomes a big thing, and it's... But in fact, those who've managed to be tricked, or have understood with their own minds what's happening, and accepted it, they're peaceful. Some are not yet at the final stage. We have to do one more push. Or if you're new at it, a couple of more pushes. And when you see and you understand, then you become very peaceful. Then you just become expert. You specialize in your art. And you make it perfect. Do it perfectly, Krishna says. Svese kamanya birata. Become perfect in your work, samsatim labatenara, and gain perfection. Become perfect in your work and gain perfection. All right, Hare Krishna.